Are you ready to embark on a transformative journey towards peace, purpose, and fulfillment? Join multi-certified coaches Denise Russo and Samantha Powell for your signature story retreat. This 3-day retreat is designed to put you on a path of self-discovery and personal growth. Your signature story is all-inclusive so you can focus on what truly matters. Our seasoned and certified facilitators will guide you through eye-opening experiences, providing the tools and insights you need to create lasting change. If you're feeling tired and stuck and want to change your story, this retreat is your opportunity. Invest in yourself because you are the most important asset. This retreat is your chance to prioritize your well-being, enable perspectives, and unlock your full potential. Reserve your spot today and take the first step towards a brighter future. Welcome to What's on Your Bookshelf with your hosts, Denise Russo and Samantha Powell.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of What's on Your Bookshelf. This is a life and leadership podcast where we're diving deeply into the books that are on our shelves and sharing the lessons that we've learned. My name is Denise Russo, and I'm joined by my co-host, Sam Powell, and we are in a series on the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. We've shared a little bit about the intro in Chapter 1, and we've got so much to share that we're still in Chapter 1 now, but we're going to be discussing today about how to take our habits and create systems. If you've missed any of the previous episodes, it's okay. You can jump right in now. If you'd like to listen back to the other episodes, please feel free to do so. We'd also encourage you to subscribe, like, and share these episodes so that others can take advantage of the things that you're learning as well. And we always love to hear from you. Sam, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm doing really good because today we're talking about systems, which is not my forte, but it is for you. And so I've got my pen and paper ready. I'm going to take a lot of notes from the things that I'm going to learn from you today. Where we left off last time was talking about sort of this revelation that you had from being a goal-oriented coach. Like you have a company called something that's Lead the Game is all about getting to the goal line or creating goals. And we had actually a special edition podcast not long ago where we were teaching people about goals, right?
Yep, exactly. And I spend so much time focusing on how to help people with their goals. And so I always consider myself a really goal-oriented person. But this section of this chapter starts out with forget about goals, focus on systems instead. And it was like this visceral, no, I can't forget about goals. I tell people they need goals. But I decided to sit back in curiosity instead of judgment and really listen to what James is telling us in this section. And what he says is, my results had very little to do with the goals I had set and nearly everything to do with the systems that I followed. And so what I realized is that as I coach people on goals, right, we spend one session identifying the goal. And then we spend many sections getting to that goal. And in those sessions afterwards, what we're really focusing on, and what I kind of unconsciously was doing and didn't realize, was helping people build systems to make that happen. I built an accountability system to drive people to that. And it looks something like this, right? Okay, we're going to break down, we're going to understand why you've got a goal, why that's important to you, help you get focused, really articulate that in one session. We're going to get you lined up with where your finish line is. But then what we're going to talk about from there is how you get there. And it's a system that makes it easy. So it's what are you going to do between now and the next time? By when will you be doing the things that you said? How do you ensure that that happens? How do you manage your time, right? For me, it's I put things on my calendar. I assign meetings. I have an accountability buddy, right? I've got a system that helps me get there. And so what I realized is that while I always call myself like a goal-oriented person, and I think a lot of people who know me would say that too, especially because I talk about goals so much, what I realized is that I'm a goal-oriented person. Yes, I'm a system-oriented person, but what I really am is a growth-oriented person. What I care about the most is putting those two things together so that I'm larger and greater and better than I was yesterday, than I was a year ago. And that's really what James is telling us in this section is goals are about the results you want to achieve. Systems are about the processes that lead you to those results. And so if you can get good goals, but you can get good systems that get you those goals, that's really where success lies. And James goes on to say that goals are good for setting a direction, but systems are the best for making progress. And I found this to be true, and I've seen this to be true in leading teams and living my own life. And I realized as I read this, like, this is some of the breakdown in some of the things that I want to get to and I'm not at. I want to eat healthier. I want to, want to lead my family in that direction, right? And things like that. And I realized, like, I just have a horrible system around managing meals. That's part of my problem, right? And so as I'm reading this chapter, as I'm thinking about this, I'm rethinking about goals that I have, and I'm focused on the wrong problem here. What I'm focused on is kind of the goals and getting there in some of these cases where I'm struggling, instead of the systems. But again, it's something I know, but it just wasn't, I really wasn't living it, really wasn't bringing that into my consciousness and thinking about that.
I wonder if it isn't so much that it's like thinking about getting to a destination and not enjoying the journey that gets you there. So
Mhm.
for me, what I was thinking about is listening to you share that is that as a goal-oriented coach, you're still helping the person have a GPS, set mile markers, know how to safely go around detours and get to the final destination. But we've referenced in the past one of my favorite books on my shelf, which is not a leadership development book, but that I use for it, is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And without giving spoilers, the entire book is about how to experience with gratitude the steps in the journey that get you to the thing you thought was the end result. And I think for a lot of my clients, they think about things like, well, when I have this title, I will suddenly now feel like I have success. Or when I make this salary, I will feel like I've made it. Or when my kids go off to college, I'll have more time to build a garden. Or when I have something, then instead of saying, like, stop
Yeah.
looking at the end and enjoying the process. In fact, in the book, James talks about how Super Bowl winner Bill Walsh says the score takes care of itself. Stop looking at the scoreboard, because this is the same in your areas of life. If you're only looking at what you want the score to be at the end, you're missing out on the plays. You're missing out on the teamwork. You're missing out on the experience of maybe being in the Super Bowl. And so if you want better results, then forget about setting goals and focus on your system instead, as you said. Now, I don't think it's so much about forgetting the goals. I think it's about how you achieve the goals and what you experience along the way of those. And James talks about these 4 problems. Maybe we break down these 4 problems, Sam. What do you think?
Yeah, and this is James says a handful of problems arise when you spend too much time thinking about your goals and not enough time designing your systems. I think you're right, right? It's the goal, like the end place isn't your result, like isn't the thing to focus on. It's the journey along the way. And there's, what is the quote that goes along with that? I'm totally blanking, but it's really about the journey and experiencing that. And James is saying it's that journey, that system that gets you there that's really important. But these problems are really interesting. So the first one is problem number 1: winners and losers have the same goals. Which, like, I laughed because he says every Olympian wants to win a gold medal, and, like, of course, right? Like everybody's goal is the same whether you win or lose. I think about, like, I don't know, every NBA team wants to win the championship, but one does every year, right? One is the winner, not all of them. And so the thought process is, there's a problem if you're just focusing on the goal, that everybody wants that. But the percentage of people that get it are 1%, right? 100 teams, 1% type of a thing, right? 2%, something like that.
I wish I could remember where I heard this story, and I feel like it was a story. I'm going to have to pull this out and see if we could add it into the extras. There was this, I know where it came from. Yesterday, I was watching an episode of The Bear, which is on FX, and it's about to be on Disney Plus for those of you that are Disney Plus subscribers who know my favorite is Disney. And The Bear is this television show that is about this guy who is a very, very successful chef, and he ends up having to go home and take over a family business. And you can watch it for yourself. Suffice to say, it's up for tons of awards. It's a really good show. But in the episode I was watching last night, there was a story that one of the main characters was telling about this kind of a subject about winners and losers having the same goal. And he was giving a story about this baseball player, and forgive me because I'm not from Chicago, but it was a Chicago player, Martinez. I can't remember his first name, but in the story, it was talking about how, this guy was set up to be like champion ball player, had the great stats, but something shifted for him and he got off balance. And in the game that was going to clinch being able to go to the World Series, he completely got off balance and they started losing the game. And in this particular game, there was an incident that I think is probably a pretty famous incident where a ball was hit into the outfield, and a fan who normally would do this in any other ball game reached his glove down to grab the ball, and he leaned over a little bit too far and prevented the outfielder from catching the ball. So everybody villainized this guy who caught the ball in the stands because they said that was the catalyst then for, oh my gosh, that's why the team lost the game and didn't go to the World Series. But really what it was happening was these small events over the period of those 9 innings that led to the demise of the team that didn't get to go. And so the ambition was that they wanted to win the game. And it wasn't even so much that they lost. And the guy who was in the outfield, he wanted to be there and enjoy the game. And what did he lose? Because now everybody remembers this guy who sort of lost the game for that team because he leaned his glove in. And the story here in James's book goes on to even talk about an example with Olympics. Every Olympian wants to win a gold medal. Every candidate wants to win their government position. Everyone who goes out for a job wants to get the job. And it shouldn't be so much about success or failure. It should be about what the goal is that you want and the why behind the goal, because the goal will be there anyway. But to your point, Sam, and what you're teaching us is about what's the system to get you there, even if something happens that takes your eye off the scoreboard.
Yeah, exactly. Because we have this bias of survivorship that makes us think that because winners win, therefore they had the best goal. But in reality, we all had the same goal, right? There's this bias here that we're looking at. Oh, if we set really good goals, then we're going to get them. But in reality, that's not what it is, right? The team that comes out on top is the one that had all the little things go right for them by the systems that they put into place.
You know what? That kind of reminds me too of my very, very, very first book I ever got from John Maxwell was called Failing Forward. And it was a book that I thought was a strange title because I never really thought about the things I was doing as failures. But he really talked about how sometimes it's in the not winning that you learn. In fact, he has another book, right? It's called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. And to your point, everyone goes into a game when there's 2 teams expecting and hoping to win. The funny thing is at the end of the game, typically the winner will say, when they're questioned by the media, what are you going to do next? And they say, I'm going to Disney World. And the loser isn't so much a loser. The loser can go back into the locker room and go to the drawing board. Like, did they really lose? Was the other team just maybe better? Did the other team think differently? Were they stronger? Did the losing team actually lose? Or was it there was something that they could learn from that loss to make them even stronger the next time? And in fact, you hear all kinds of stories about victory where people that time and again lost were able to overcome that. There's tons of stats. You're the math person and also the sports person, Sam, and you know better than I, but stats about how Babe Ruth struck out more times than he had home runs, or Michael Jordan missed the basket more times than he dunked it. Tiger Woods did not get hole-in-ones every time he was at the tee. So how many times is there a miss that isn't a loss, but it's an opportunity to learn? And then you create those stronger habits over time so that the next time you go out for it, it's even better, which leads us into problem number 2 of achieving a goal is only a momentary change.
Yeah, and this one's interesting. And we think about it, right? If we're goal oriented only, we focus on just getting to that goal. Once we get there, then what? And this reminds me of the story that I told in the intro, right? I had this goal because the goal was supposed to be, right, getting into college. And I got into college, and then what? I was like, well, I don't know what I want to what do I want to do, right? And I think a lot of people find that, or like once they get their degree, or once they get the job, it's like, well, now what, right? Like I achieved my goal, and now what? And he uses the analogy here of like cleaning up a messy room. Like, okay, my goal is to get my room clean, right? I'm going to clean up the kitchen. So I get the kitchen cleaned up, but guess what? Tomorrow the kitchen's a mess again because I didn't implement a system that maintains that kind of success, right? And so it's that reframing of it's, if you're focusing just on the goal, that's a moment in time. That is one win that you get. But if you've got a system that perpetuates those wins, that brings you forward, that gives you continuous wins, then you're into something really big, right? You're therefore then a person who has a clean room, not somebody who had a clean room once.
This is really a great lesson because I was actually out of town recently for a week. And so I told my kids, do not let me come home and face disaster. Now, funny enough, and I told you this off the mic earlier, that the day before I left for my trip, my dishwasher, my microwave, and my washing machine all broke on the same day, the day before I was leaving for a week. My kids are teenagers. One's a little bit older than a teenager. And all I kept thinking in my head was, oh my gosh, I'm going to come home and face disaster. But the book talks about something that my kids actually unconsciously achieved. It says, when you solve problems at the results level, you only solve them temporarily. But in order to improve for good, you need to solve problems at the systems level. Fixing the inputs and the outputs will fix themselves. And so what happened for me was I told my kids before I left, very simple, very normal things that you should expect, right? If you use a cup, wash it and then put it away. Like they were used to putting things in a dishwasher that now no longer worked. When I got home, I was shocked, Sam, how clean my kitchen was. And it was because the kids created a system knowing they couldn't just rely on mom to do the laundry and do the dishes or fill the dishwasher. They had to, if they wanted clean silverware, they had to use it, clean it, and clean it again for a week. And so this really answered the question, that not to have the momentary change, but how to create a system to improve good over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that good over time leads us into problem number 3, which is, and this one I like, again, had this visceral reaction to of like, oh, I hate this because I like goals, but goals restrict your happiness. And I was like, come on, James. And then as I read this is the line that really kind of sums this up for me, is when you fall in love with the process rather than the product, you don't have to wait to give yourself permission to be happy. And this is what you were saying earlier, Denise, right? Like we coach people all the time who are, I'll be happy when ... I get the job, I hit this goal, I'm in shape, I eat healthier, whatever. But if you want to bring happiness into your present, you have to fall in love with what you're doing. And it reminds me, I was talking with a mom friend of mine yesterday. We were at the pool with our kids. And she's got 3 kids, a full-time job, and looks amazing in a swimsuit in her 40s. And I thought, dang, like, what is her secret, right? And as I was talking to her, she was talking about how she went for a run yesterday morning. And it's hot here right now. And she was saying, oh, she just loves running because it helps clear her mind. It gives her all of this great stuff, right? She's not running to get in shape. She's not running to look good in a bathing suit. She's not running for whatever goal, could be out there. She's running for the love of running, because in that process, in that system, she's like, all right, this is 30 minutes of mom time, of me time, of I get to just release and reset and do whatever. And it was this beautiful story. And it was that, right? She wasn't in love with the outcome. She wasn't in love with the goal. She was in love with the process. And it gave her so much inside of that. And, I think that's really the testament of, if you fall in love with the process rather than the product. You give yourself permission to be happy right now, all the time. You don't wait for happiness to come to you.
There are so many books about seeking joy and seeking peace and finding happiness. I can't even tell you how many books there are on happiness. I'm in a class right now called The Science of Well-Being, which is about trying to find this elusive thing that we all want, which is peace. And the principles of Ikigai, which I often talk about, and it's foundational to the way we coach our clients, is that it's not something that you have to find that's elusive. It's something in your everyday that you have access to every day. And so I guess my question would be for our listeners, and it's definitely a question for myself, is what are you doing for yourself? I could tell you right now, Sam, I would not find joy going on a run. It's not something I enjoy doing.
That's fair. There's plenty of people who agree with you on that.
But what if there was something you did enjoy doing and you started to create habits around that? For me, I get peace and solitude and thinking time looking at water. So I make an intentional effort to be around water. And what I notice is that when I'm not, I don't have the thing that I have when I am. And so why would we not want to live a life that we can build where we are opening our mind to the things that bring us this peace, joy, and happiness? But that leads directly into problem number 4, which is that goals are at odds with long-term progress because we often get caught up in the comfortableness of our short-term requirements or efforts or our quote unquote job. So, what is the long term progress that we're looking for? Because in this part, it says that the purpose of setting goals is to win the game, which we've talked about. Your company is called Lead the Game. The purpose of building systems, though, is to continue playing the game. My organization is called School of Thoughts, which is about how you change your thoughts so that you can change your results in life. So, how do we get true long term thinking where it's goal-less thinking? I'm still a little caught on this, Sam, because I believe we have to have mile markers. We have to have goals. We have to have something we're trying to achieve so that we don't get complacent. What did this problem number 4 speak to you?
I think it's about broadening out your thought process. What this made me think about is Simon Sinek's work on the infinite game, that the purpose of the game is to play the game, right? The purpose of life is to live. The purpose of, what you're doing is so much bigger and broader. And so when you zoom that into everything I'm trying to do is just to get to this step only, right? And this is like all these problems are problems with just being goal focused. And it's good to have goals. So it's not saying, oh, we don't have goals, but goals are giving you context for what you're doing in your everyday life. So it's reframing that mindset from, I want to be somebody who is in shape, to I want to be an active person. It's in the moment. It's right now. It's because then once I get in shape, it's over. For me, like once I got to college, I did it. Then what? When in reality, my goal, that should have been a mile marker in a longer term plan, right? And you're at 18, you don't know that, but like that's really what it is about, kind of reframing that thought process. Is goals are good. They give you context, they give you direction, but they aren't the end result completely. And if there's one goal that feels like it's the end, it's, well, then what comes next, right? What does that look like? But focusing on the system and falling in love with that process is what perpetuates you forever, right? Being growth oriented, being somebody who is larger and bigger today than you were yesterday, and tomorrow than you are today, and things like that. And so it's that reframing, I think, is really what that kind of calls to me.
Yeah, a lot of people that I think of are when they get to the goal, is it enough? Like for some people, is enough enough? And so it makes me think about, a lot of people recently have probably watched the movie Oppenheimer about the guy that invented the atomic bomb. Dr. Oppenheimer, in fact, Atomic Habits, okay, atomic bomb, atomic habit, atomic. What is the definition of atomic? It's about a forming of a single irreducible unit or component that's in a larger system. So these goals we're talking about are from a larger system. And James talks about how focusing on the overall system rather than the single goal is one of the core themes of the book. And it's the deeper meaning behind the word atomic. By now, you've probably realized that an atomic habit refers to a tiny change, a marginal gain, a 1% improvement. But atomic habits are not just any old habits, however small. They're little habits, part of a larger system. Just as the atoms are the building blocks of molecules, atomic habits are the building blocks of remarkable results. And in the case of that movie, or in the case of history, those small little things that built something that actually was quite destructive. But the point being is that when all those things added up into the bigger system, it was the end result of that bigger system of the combined atoms that made the difference, not just the one atom that made barely no difference.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And James says you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And so those atomic little habits that are part of that larger system, however good that system is, you fall to the level of your systems. And I think that's something really powerful because it feels really controllable to me, right? I can create systems. I can put something in place that works. I can do little things that make a big difference. And that's what we're going to explore here, right?
Absolutely. So if we were to summarize chapter 1 now, there's really kind of 3 summary areas. Number 1 is that habits are compound interest, whether they're good habits or bad. So thinking about what your habits are. Number 2 is that small changes may appear to have no difference, but then bam, all of a sudden, they suddenly appear into something really big. Number 3 is that an atomic habit is a little habit that's part of a larger system. And what you taught us throughout our time today, that it's not about being a goal-oriented person, but being a growth-oriented person. So Sam, if there was one takeaway you took from chapter 1, what might it be?
I gotta look at my goals and I have to refocus on, am I focused on just the goal or am I thinking about that in terms of the system around it? And I'm gonna guess it's no in some of those areas where I just keep struggling. And I bet the answer is somewhere there. But how about you?
I think for me, it's 2 things. One is don't sweat the small stuff. And number 2 is be grateful for the small stuff because the
Mm,
small stuff can lead to big things. And so I want to look at those small things that I'm doing that are making a big difference on the bad side or the good side. Maybe, and I said earlier, there's no such thing as good or bad, but there are things that give or don't give us the results we want. And those are based on our actions, which come from our beliefs, which come from our thoughts. So I think for me, what I took away from chapter 1 is that I need to think about the results I have and where do they stem from the thoughts and the beliefs and the actions that I've taken. Next time, we're going to be talking about chapter 2, which is how your habits shape your identity and vice versa. But for today, we're so happy you were with us again. Please subscribe, share, like, and share your comments with us. Our information is in the show notes, thanks to our producer, Scott. My name's Denise Russo. On behalf of my friend Sam Powell, thanks for joining us again today for another episode of What's on Your Bookshelf.